Hey, everybody, welcome back to Post Status Draft. This is part of our agency series, and I'm talking to a longtime friend and an awesome agency owner in the space, Kimberly Lipari of Valet fame. We're going to be talking about the role and the changing value of websites to organizations. Valet's been around so long and has so much experience, and just diving into that with Kimberly is going to be really, really exciting for me because updating her knowledge of how websites and their role in the world and businesses and organizations. She's got a front seat view to that with her team, what they do for their clients. And we're going to talk about some of those elements that an organization should outsource, stick to their core competency and outsource. But before we get all of that, we're going to have a fun conversation talking about where websites sit today in the market on the internet, their value and role. And no better person to talk about that than Kimberly. So Kimberly, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do at Valet?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. Love hanging out and having conversations like this. I think they're so important. And I am the owner of Valet.io. We offer comprehensive end-to-end website management services for businesses that want to have a strong brand presence, want to make sure they're communicating themselves well online, and need a team to support them so that they can focus on the things that they do best every day.
Gosh, you're awesome. I'm going to come back to the end to end because I think that's one of the compelling parts of this conversation too. All that you do, health, and then having a firm, an agency, a partner really that can do so much for the website. But okay, let's dive in. So we've been talking about this for a couple of months now, but I saw you posted on LinkedIn. I'll put those in the show notes of that post. I think it was so timely and so good. I've been kind of updating my view about all this. And, you know, in the old days, websites were these like, and I find myself still referring to them like they're a brochure at the base, a 24/7, 365 days a year where your clients can go in and kind of check out what you do. But your post really illuminated something that's all evolved and changed as the world has changed in business. And what are you seeing there with the changing value and importance and focus on websites for business and organizations that you serve?
Well, I think namely the chief change is that gone is the my business at webmaster email
Mm,
address. That used to be the sole provider and contact point for what websites were for a lot of companies. They were kind of these closed off boxes where only two people could edit the HTML and change things up. So um, from that, and you say the olden days, which it feels like that, but I think maybe even just in the past, I don't know, probably five years or so, it's escalated very quickly to become that the website is important to the CEO for one reason or another, probably more for brand identity. So that, are we putting our best face forward, right? These very broad strokes of what the business means. It's important to marketing to make sure that they are communicating the services effectively, that there's good copy, good interaction, social integrations, right? It's also important to sales managers and even other line level employees and other parts of the business to be able to share what they're doing or provide PDFs, white papers, all kind registrations. I mean, all those different things. So it's become a very crowdsourced important piece of a business, and so that's changed a lot. It's no longer one person kind of holding the keys that can understand. It's now really commonplace for everybody in a business to think of the website in a different way with a different sort of use for the role that they play.
one of the things that strikes me from what you're saying in our discussions in the past, particularly with your clients and what you see, is this when you said webmaster, it's this thought of a supplemental thing, like almost an afterthought that websites were once thought of, now to being very integral to everything the business and organization does. I remember talking with about some of your clients that you all work with, and you had an interesting way to say it. You're like, maybe they weren't straight on e-commerce. So at iThemes or post status, for instance, that was it. Like,
Yeah.
if the website's down, we're not making money,
Mm-hmm.
but you're seeing a multifaceted approach now, where it's not just an afterthought and supplemental. It's really key to driving the mission and goals of the organization. And I thought that was really interesting and awesome for WordPress, by the way, and the internet, that seeing that value change. I wonder if some of that got spurred on with pandemic. I've heard a lot of, let's say, a yoga studio or those in-person physical location bricks and mortar businesses go,
Yeah.
what do we do now? Well, I loved, if there's positives that came out of COVID, it was the fact that it pushed people to go, that's not our only means of business. But can you talk a little bit and share what you see from client perspective about the role of websites in these organizations?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I have two very specific examples. I think from very different sides of the coin, that kind of point out some of the changes that we're seeing. Working on a project with a client who is trying to consolidate a few different brands under an umbrella into one. During the meetings throughout this project, we can hear the different stakeholders in the project throughout the company really communicating what's important to them. And this kind of goes back to what each person in the business thinks the website should do, right? The CEO is much more concerned about the layout, how things are presented. You have marketing and other sub departments of that worried about, well, is it flashy enough? Where's the pizzazz? And then you have someone else who has submitted copy, and then it gets pulled a week later because no one within the confines of the project had really taken the time to dig deep into what those words were. So that actually became kind of an afterthought, but then it bumped up in priority. So you have all of these different things that should matter, but there's no kind of cohesive brain on when and where they matter, right? Because this kind of traditional business roles, right? So I think even business itself is kind of catching up to how it feels about what its website is and what it does. Alternatively, outside of the web presence, businesses that traditionally take place with more one-on-one interactions. I have a dear friend who I spoke with a couple weeks ago who works in oil field sales. And they typically do their sales and marketing person to person, right? It's let's go on a fishing charter, let's go have lunch and all these things. And they're not leveraging their website well enough to actually say, hey, we now do these 4 other things that we haven't, we only tell people in person to person meetings. And the CEO says, oh, well, yeah, we have one and that's fine enough. But is person to person enough nowadays? Are they going to go to lunch with you and then go check out your website, right? Do you offer a brochure of services within that and explain what it is that you do? So I think it's such a widely used normal tool now to just go to someone's URL that from online focused primary businesses and person to person based, formerly traditional, right, brick and mortar or service style companies, even in large industries, $1 million industries like oil field, it's changing. It has to. it's
Yeah.
I think I lost the thread there a little bit.
No, and why not utilize this amazing technology, for instance? So, you can use WordPress to build the website, but then the advent of Google and the search engines that push traffic, people are looking for destinations to find answers to their challenges. And so the advent of marketing, understanding with SEO and paid traffic and things like that, back to a site where you can convert it, measure it,
even on the back end. And that was one of the things that I talked about with my friend. They don't have a CRM of much of any kind. It just kind of lives in these guys' heads that go out to these travel routes. We always live on this hit by a bus scenario of what happens if I get hit by a bus tomorrow. What is my team, going to do? What have I laid for information and documentation? And formerly businesses that have been person to person are missing an opportunity to kind of move into that digital age of finding clients and putting them on a journey, or even if it's just a consideration of the journey you want to put people on outside of the web experience, right? It's all it's a good what am I thinking of? Mind mapping, I guess, of how you want all of that to work. So from the back end, from the actual interfacing with the customer to the front end to how the customer sees you, there's a lot of that in between, but it's now all being laid on the website. This is the website's job, and that's a lot. There's a lot going on.
Well, you mentioned two kind of groups. It's either marketing managers that I assume could have different title, but somebody that manages the marketing, seeing the value of websites for marketing their business. And then you also mentioned CEOs. So that to me just instantly says importance, like recognizing the importance that a website can do all these functions, add to, not just supplement, but be very complementary and strengthen sales. You know, if you're in B2B sales, I have a friend, I think you and I have talked about, as a manufacturing company, sells all over the world. Well, the search results for those are probably very small, but they're long tail and very easily capturable. You know, like somebody's going online to find that part or that particular, he spells those compressors, but you know, and then selling, like, you could grow your bottom line or your top line really easily just with some simple things with a WordPress website.
Absolutely.
And then, like you said, for those B2B, there's so many things. Support is another bucket of things. I think of a website is like, I can't remember who I'm supposed to call for this, or I need to ask a question. Go to the website right there.
Absolutely.
So I think that's good, very good in terms of the industry, in terms of the internet. Of course, we love the open web, post at us, and you do too at Valet, through WordPress. So that's good, seeing that value, knowing it has such utility for the overall growth, seeing the importance of that. And then, but this is interesting. So are you seeing, from the role perspective, they've now seen it. Now you have a different people coming in with different needs and wants for their website. And is there someone unifying that from the client perspective, or is it a lot of different stakeholders coming, going, well, we need this. Okay. Is there somebody synthesizing all of that?
We play that role where we can, where we have been allowed to. I think oftentimes we'll get very lucky and we'll have a C-level stakeholder involved that can do I think of it as like a Venn diagram where you have linear thinkers and strategic thinkers, and that overlapping section is someone who can live in both worlds, or at least empathize very well with one or the other. So we play that role as often as we can, and we try to move people into a space where they realize that is possible. Two things can be true. You can want to have a very grand strategic presence, you know, with wonderful colors and layout and good copy, but at the same time, there's some technical decisions that need to be made, you know, and some research that needs to be done kind of in between. So overlapping, you see there are specific roles. Marketing managers, I find, are kind of expanding into that. And they're sourcing companies like us to handle the technical depth and to help us translate that gray area where you have strategy kind of overlapping with this linear direction of where people want to go.
So oftentimes it's the CEO, marketing manager type that is your point person, but are there other teams, or are they funneling through that person, or are they coming straight to Valet, for instance, on this?
Oh, they'll come straight to us. We work with a lot of different people within the org chart, but really the kind of, you have to be in a position where you are looking at the forest and the trees to be able to kind of drive direction or get the most value out of the advice and the consultation, you know, that an agency like ours can offer. Because we can't come across too bossy, right? You're using the wrong thing. Why would you tell me that? I researched and it's fine. No, I'm not saying it because you're wrong. I'm saying because, you know, we have experience. We can give you a better option. So and we can see the forest. We know what else is going on. I know you really want to use this one tool, but you have this other one over here that you're not aware of that someone else installed, and those won't work together. So, we work really well with roles that kind of have essentially the same purview in their job that we have in ours as tech advisors.
Yeah. It's so interesting because you mentioned kind of in the first of all this, the role of the webmaster. And, in the early days, it was maybe find somebody that can cobble this stuff together. But that changing role where they see the importance and then go, but they still need someone with expertise that can advise them. I can go left or right? Which way should I go? And it seems like the role you all are providing too is offer there's a couple of paths here and maybe steer them to one particular path.
Yeah. That's a lot of what it is what's the best path for you. You may be, if there's these 3 or 4 very important things, which one would benefit you the most? Let's go there first, and then we can go back to the 3 or 4 important things. There's no static list of what's best.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a static list of what's good, but what's best, I mean, that depends. What do you need? Are you interested in growth? Are you interested in converting? Are you interested in education? Those are all very different things.
And you said too, like depth. So there's someone here at the organization has these strategic goals, things they want to do, but the depth part, and that's where, online work is pretty deep. It's so nuanced. There's so much stuff going on. In your post, you mentioned, performing well in the search engine, the SERPs, the search engine results, speed, all those kind of things they probably don't think about. And the work I've done or helped with Lindsay's, my wife's Lindsay, that you know real well, with her marketing agency that's about it. They understand strategy, that what they need to do and what they need to get accomplished, but don't always have that level of depth in-house. And we were talking before we got started on the recording here about kind of the changing roles of like the importance of having quote vendors out here that, to hire someone with this type of expertise is probably going to be pretty hard at almost any level. There's obviously enterprise, companies that have whole teams that do web stuff, but still probably, I think, and I've seen from our membership at Post Status, still outsource a lot of the depth we're talking about because it's hard to hire a WordPress professional that knows all these things, can run this gamut. And we were talking specifically about this role. My view is when I was helping a client a couple of years ago, they'd often refer to me, I was doing consulting with them, as a vendor. And I go, but I feel more, I care about the mission and goals of what you're trying to get accomplished. And I don't think of myself as just someone that comes in, slots in, does the work, comes back out, leaves. I might have multiple clients and stuff. And I think that has to shift a little bit because of the nature of the work that we're doing, that you can't maybe just hire a professional that has all that. I need 10 of those with all the verticals you could think.
Right.
And so we're kind of talking about that shift. And that's where I see Valet, you're truly not a vendor, you're partner in what you're doing with them. Like you're saying, stick to what you do best. We'll take these parts that you don't do best and go deep in those. And I'm curious your thoughts about all that. You mentioned fractionals. So I'm curious what your perspective is of this shift and what you see in the market.
I think it's similar to the culture shift within companies where they want everybody to have culture, but they don't necessarily hire based on culture. I think building a team. And people talk about fractionals now, right? Oh, fractional CMO, fractional CFO, and it implies that something's broken. I don't know, just the language, you're like fractional. I don't need you all the time. I just need you to solve these specific problems. But that's inherently broken in and of itself, in that you're not incorporating someone into the big picture. I think of it sort of, my kiddo plays soccer, right? So you have these forward positions, these midfield positions, and these defensive positions, and not everybody plays at the same time, but they're all very important to have on the field. I mean, I wouldn't call one a fractional forward, right? I wouldn't call one a fractional defender. They know their positions deeply and they operate with the other team members in a way that is holistic. It makes sense. You know, they work together and they do their job when the time comes. So instead of fractional, you know, it's like a world of fractionals now. Everybody's fractional. But if we could just reposition the way that vendor relationship, that vendor ideal, the oh, you're a contractor. No, you if you hire for depth in a specific subject matter, then you have a defender standing on the back line waiting for their time to come in. They know their job, they know their depth, and you don't have to sit up there as forward worrying about, will this person be able to handle that role in that attack that's coming on, right? So it's a mindset shift, I think, for the businesses. And I think it's a struggle because, I mean, it's either part-time work or full-time work, right? All of our employment and labor laws are based around 32 hours or 40 hours a week. You have to give people a certain amount of breaks after if they've done so much work. You know, this is how the world was built. This is how our knowing and understanding of working is. So I think it's probably a little more high level than thinking about this idea of fractional and having someone come in and tell me what I need to do and then let me work on it. You know, you bring someone in to give you good advice and then map out the action steps. And if you're capable and you have a team member to do that, then fine. But don't think I don't need a full-time, you know, financial officer. Who does? You know, I mean, unless you have a huge company, no one's sitting there flipping through spreadsheets all day long, making sure that your numbers are in the right column in the spreadsheets, right? That financial officer often acts in other capacities. So what's the difference, right? If you have a vendor that just doesn't do that all the time for you, you pay them whatever that time is worth and valuable to you to do what you need them to do effectively. And that's okay. It doesn't need to be defined as anything other than teamwork. But that's a hard concept to wrap your mind around when you're in a traditional business setting. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. It illuminated so much for me with that. I think it's an analogy, but if, you know, businesses are in a game, organizations are in a game to do something, make money, whatever those, you know, from your nonprofits to is make impact to. But you think about that, if the game is business or like soccer,
Right.
I loved when you said that you need certain players on the field to accomplish that. And I love that how you said like a defender back here might not be the one that everybody thinks about, you know, the one that's going to score the goal, but you need someone with the goal. So the ball goes over the heads and you're someone there to do this role. And I love that because I think it really paints it very beautifully. You're trying to do that shift you talked about to, you need to fill the whole team and you need certain players on the team to get that job done. And I love that. Like Valet in this instance might have 4 players on the team that quote aren't full-time employees, obviously, but you still need those. You need a goalie back here. You need those.
Right. We can still supply you with technical depth. We can supply you with design depth. We can supply you with content depth. You know, that's the benefit of the different players on the field. Whereas you're not hiring one person to do SEO 24 hours, you know, a day, or 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, rather, if we're going with the working analogy. But the idea is it's not any less important to have that available.
Well, if you use this, I might just kind of continue to expand on this because I love it.
Should we say football? Do we have an international audience? Should we say?
I think soccer is pretty international, so we can stay there. I just don't know as much about soccer, but I'll say like, if you think about there's offensive players, and I'm not sure what they're called in soccer, but they're the ones that need to go score the goals, hit the goal, hit the mission that you're trying to do. The way I think about that before this conversation was stay in your core genius. What's the thing that people come to you because that's where the magic happens. Those are the people you probably might need to continue to retain as a full-time employee as part of your team.
Well, that's your marketing director, right? That's your person. That's the attacker going up, scoring the goals. They know, they're supported. The ball has been passed up to them. A beautiful cross from, your tech team or your content writing team, whatever supports your major goals that you got going on. And then they dive right in and, kick one in the corner of the net because they know They know the consumer base. They know your customers. They know your keywords. They know what your strategy should be. They know where you want to go next, and then someone else helps them implement that. That's the most powerful. It's no longer a game of how many balls can I juggle and how many skills can I put on my resume. It's how much time have I spent on this one skill has become, I don't know if it's valued as much as it should be. It's something that businesses value in vendors, which I find very interesting, but they don't necessarily value in immediate hires, I think, as much as they should. Vendors, how many times have you drawn a red balloon for a company in the healthcare space like me, right? Is that really important? Or should you be more concerned about what kind of tools do I use to draw my red balloon? What color red am I using? Is there a specific healthcare friendly color palette that we're using, or those sorts of things that are supportive of the skill that I've spent so much time working on design. And can I make a realistic balloon? Doesn't matter if I've drawn 500 of them. If they look like anime and that's not what you want, then it doesn't really help you out any, right? If you want a realistic balloon, then yes, I've drawn hundreds of realistic balloons in many different colors, or I'm probably going off the rails with that, but point being, it's not valued as much with vendors, or it's not valued as much with instant hires as much as it's required of vendors, right? You have to have this very deep and specific knowledge. Well, you hire in-house and you want someone to have 17 skills. I've seen so many LinkedIn WordPress job postings in the last couple of months, especially with the flood in the market. And it's like, must have deep knowledge of CSS, must be able to project manage and communicate effectively across team members, must be able to turn concepts into action plans, and must know CSS. If you want anybody to know, sorry. If you want anybody to know those things deeply enough to do them effectively and well, with all of the cross-browser things that you need to know, and accessibility and all that kind of stuff, like that's a big ask.
Yeah,
big ask for one
definitely.
human.
Absolutely. And that's just defining that role too of agency. You think about what you do at Valet is you find, recruit, train, hire all those professionals that fit that job description, but would go, I probably wouldn't be as interested doing that role at an organization, but that you find a team of those there, you're doing all of that work. That takes time, energy, all that expertise to do all that. Why not let it over here? And you think about, there's one note you mentioned in the job skills. It's like being able to communicate across team. It's like, that's your role as CEO of Valet is to make sure that your team here of experts in WordPress in particular are communicating as a team back to customers. So like, why would you take that extra cognitive load too, would be my thought. Stick to the things you do best, the things that what you're scoring the goals, back to soccer. You're the star. Those stars, do that for them. What you get to do for those that are the backstop, the defenders, like you said back there. To me, I think that's way more efficient and realistic, because we know Lindsay is in the process of hiring another person right now, and it just takes so much time to source, find, go through the vetting process, have those calls. It's just extremely time intensive. And then we're talking the pre-roll. It's like, oftentimes when you're hiring somebody, you want to find the right fit, but you always end up onboarding, training, guiding those people to do the best for what you're trying to do as an agency. And I just go, that's a lot of effort. We've at our previous company, our teams, that's what we did. We hired experts to things that we weren't good at, couldn't be good at, couldn't even be close to good at. Find experts with experience and expertise, pull them in. And like back to soccer, I go, the coach is your CEO, your marketing manager out there that needs to execute, should spend majority of their time on those star players on their team, and then source the rest of their team through quality people that are worrying about that all the time. To me, that just feels like no brainer, by the way, Kimberly, but I say I'm biased, but I just look at it from a business perspective and I go, I like this trend where that typical vendor relationship should get an enhancement. You shouldn't think about, well, they get paid from Valet or whatever it is, whatever agency, they're not part of our team. But if you think about it and find an agency like Valet that really cares, wants to do a great job and play that role on their team, hey, I think we should upgrade that mindset and approach and attitude of contractors, vendors, and say, well, are they part of our team? They might be fractionally part of our team, but we don't need them 100% of the time.
Right.
And that's where I think about what you all offer. And I've told you this for years. I love what you offer because it's not just maintenance. It's not just these things that you can probably get in a number of agencies. It's understanding that mindset, playing those roles on the field for your client, because you all do. And I want to talk about that. I want to shift gears a little bit about what you do, because I think your approach is pretty awesome, authentic. I think you all created this category. But you do it to this level, high level, that is not just, well, but if you just maintain my website and my updates and my plugins, themes, all that kind of stuff, that's cool. But it doesn't to me go that to be that player on the field. Could you talk a little bit about the holistic service? Because you said in the beginning, end to end, it's really compelling, but what does that mean?
Okay, well, we had many iterations of this. I think we had the website health pyramid, and then we had these pillars at one point. But it's really the idea that expanding on the beliefs of what different stakeholders in a business can do for the website can do for them. It's kind of the flip side of that in the tech stack, where now, because there are so many different things required and so many different niches and expertise, and all of these people that you can follow to say, I can tell you how to do X really well, but that's one out of 1,000 things that your website does, or one out of 1,000 things that your marketing manager does. Really, end to end is conceptual in conversion, traffic, or can people use your website? Is the tech stack healthy? Are you performing? Are there any opportunities for improvement? But it's iterative, right? Because as you grow, as you change things, you need to go back and kind of reevaluate all of those. It's a shifting. I haven't been able to find a really good graphic for it. And I feel like even the pyramid, when we had it, it was good, but it wasn't the best. Still, it wasn't the most accurate way of kind of displaying and visually how these things shift with new people, new processes, new ideas, new initiatives within a company. There's always something that you can look at, and there's always something to revisit. And then when you tie in metrics, right? We started doing these data dashboards, and you start tying in metrics and looking at things that you can actually measure and set goals with. Then it becomes a whole new ball game. Well, now you're tweaking. Now you've entered Formula One, and you're moving little tiny notches on the engine to get that extra half a second off your start time or your run time, because you're really in the big leagues at that point, right? So, but even in the smaller medium business sector, there's a lot of people that don't realize that there's a lot of layers. A good example. We have a wonderful client who was looking at their Google page speed times. And of course, we all know it's a rabbit hole, right? I want 100. No, you don't want 100. You can't get 100 for many reasons. But, and even if you do, it doesn't, if you get 100, it doesn't knock up your search engine ratings, right? So, what are you actually going for there, right? But we're looking at some page speed load times, and had to have a big discussion about image sizes on a page, image weight, so how big the actual file size is. Also, you're using a page builder. Also, you're using this thing in here. Also, you're maxing out 2 PHP workers every week with the stuff that you need on your tech stack. So it's not the hosting that's your problem necessarily, but you could be giving your hosting an easier time. So all of these things intertwine, they intermix. I had an email today, I need to move hosting, but I also want to do registration and webinars later. Glad you mentioned that, because just hosting with webinars and registration for things is, those are 2 different considerations. You need 2 different things. So it is a big thread that runs through all of these things that you need as far as user experience, accessibility, usability, tech stack, speed, performance, optimization. There's a lot of things that overlap. You can't just kind of dive deep into one anymore. So you need that end to end, where people, you may not need to dive into all of those things, but you need to understand or work with someone who understands that those are all part of the equation when you're having a conversation. It's not hitting a hammer. I mean, hitting a nail with a hammer. You know,
Mhm.
you're looking at, you know, an entire piece of furniture that you're trying to put together. So if you cut this one part, maybe those four things fall down. Or if you add something here, maybe you weaken another part of the structure. What if we put something here? We can bolster everything, you know. So having that comprehensive knowledge of, that's what end to end, I get in my words, my many
Mhm.
words, means.
Well, we talked about the first is like if the website, your organization's website is vitally important to your strategy and what you're trying to get done, you need someone to go to that has depth of knowledge and breadth
Hmm.
of services that can get you to where you're going. So I think at some point you're part mechanic, part your tuner upper performance. But it's like when you're trying to do something that's integral to your business that involves your WordPress website, that's where Valet comes in. And why this is compelling to me, because one of our the businesses we have an investment in, we brought to Valet because we go, she doesn't need development all the time,
Right.
but sometimes she needs functionality, new features, new things for the website to get done what she's trying to get done. And that was why it was so compelling that you also offer bundles, I think, of development time where, to try to hire that out or try to do a full-time employee is going to be, I think, near impossible. But I love that because it was so compelling. She might need this month 3 hours of development type work.
Right.
Well, they have someone to go to that's trusted, trained, great communicators to do all that, to get it done. And that's why the end-to-end is so interesting, because I know in the health pyramid that we talked about a while back, you're thinking about all the way to analytics and metrics, to
Hmm.
features and functionality, to I just need to create a new page that has these things to promote my new offering. Those types of services, that's what you all offer. And I think that's why Valet is really compelling in the space. I wish, not to get you just more competitors here, but I wish there was more people that understood, like, businesses and organizations need this. They're not just going to go hire, develop full-time developer rates right now are insane. They're
Hmm.
pretty, and I'm glad because our professionals are worth it. But that you're like, I couldn't even think, like $120,000, $150,000 a year to just get someone that knows the stuff. But from a fractional time wise, I can get that expertise in bundles just when I need it.
Hmm.
And then someone that knows all the way from development to metrics, health analytics, performance, that understands the connection of faster site equals SEO equals more traffic equals potentially more conversions in that holistic way, I think is pretty dang compelling.
Yeah, being able to give advice with all of that depth of experience. There's a story. The guy with the hammer that goes to work on a submarine. Have you heard that one?
Uh-uh.
There's they're working on a submarine, and this guy just can't quite get the back end, the propeller working. Something's going on with it. So he goes through his Rolodex and finds this propeller specialist that he knows that they've called in the past when they've hit really, really tough problems, because he's got to get the submarine working. He wants to get it going. This is the one thing that he just can't, solve for some reason. And so he calls the guy in, and guy comes in, and he's got this giant toolbox, and he spends about 10 minutes looking, poking around, moving some things. And he opens up his toolbox and pulls out this teeny tiny hammer. And he walks up to the propeller, moves his finger around just a little bit, and taps on it twice. And he says, "It's fixed." And the guy goes up and he, kind of spins it. "Oh my gosh, this is great. You fixed it. We can get going. This is a huge piece of machinery. This is a huge project we're working on. This is a huge initiative." And the guy says, "Okay, I'll send you an invoice." So he sends him an invoice for $40,000. And the guy was like, he calls him up. He's like, "Man, $40,000? Are you kidding me?" And he goes, "Oh, I'll send you an itemized invoice." And it was like, $10,000, for my time, and then $30,000 knowing where to tap with the hammer. It's that whole idea of, I don't know if that's valued as much, as it
Mm.
was, because there are so many specialists. Everybody's a specialist. So why would you value someone with a broad based knowledge of an industry? as much as you used to.
Yeah. Well, if you're getting married and want a piano player for your wedding, you got to take into account that person has been probably spending decades
Yep.
learning the piano, learning the music,
Right.
practicing to understand. And back to the summary is exactly where they hit.
I'm pretty
And
sure there's like
that's
a
value.
Reddit thread with like all kinds of stories like that, right? Where, what do you mean you want to charge me $250? It's a 1 hour wedding,
Yeah.
well, classically trained, but okay.
Well, so far we talked about the value of the website growing in importance, and so glad to hear that. What you're seeing too, what we're seeing. We've talked about that role of the classic vendor changing in a good way, finding agencies like we have at Post Status, WordPress agencies like Valet has been doing it for, gosh, how long have you been doing this, Valerie? I said Valet and smashed together. Kimberly.
Valerie. It'll be my new screen name. About a little over 10 years. Yeah, it's been a long time. Whew,
No
10
kidding. And
years.
seen a
I
lot
know.
too.
Yeah.
So finding that agency has the depth of experience, has the team that can execute, has that knowledge to be that, back to the soccer, to be a player or multiple players on your field. So you get to focus on what you do best. I think that's incredible. And that just, I think for me is a perspective on our industry, particularly with WordPress, but on the internet, the increasing value of both websites and agencies that can do that, take that down for you. Anything else we missed that you want to share or talk about?
Yeah. We soft launched a new um, refresh of the site. We had to readjust our plans based on this conversation actually that we're having, just kind of this change and shift in market, being able to provide more core competencies that are highly skilled. And then we're toying around with a new version of a smaller package that we're calling Valet Express. That kind of gets you a lot of the core things that you need, covers that, the gives you the basics of the end to end, to be able to at least see and look at things. If you want help with them, then you can get help with them. If not, but our standard plans have shifted and now include an advisor for the larger ones to meet at least 2 times a year, so we can kind of stay up to date, keep up with funding cycles and group initiatives, and be able to help plan and that kind of stuff. So really excited because I mean we act in an advisory capacity anytime we talk to someone. Make an email in and ask a question anytime they want, but being present for those meetings and changes and discussions is something that we really want to make ourselves more available for. We're always available for it, but we're never like, hey, it's time for your 6-month meeting. If we make it more important, then it smooths the process a lot. And I think that's a big part of us trying to contribute to help shift that idea of being invested. We know that we love what we do, and I think that's why we're good at it, is just because we like helping, we like learning. We're not invested in selling anything in particular other than just being there, and doing it right. We're just nerds for trying to get it right and figure it out. So, that's what makes us passionate. So, we've done a little bit of kind of adjusting. There's still more to come, but that was kind of the first big push. There'll be lots of other little changes and things we're gonna grow and add in, but that's been exciting. I'm so happy. I'm so excited.
That's great. Well, if somebody's like, hey, I need a nerd to help how all this fits in. How do they get started and get started talking to you all at Valet? What's the next step?
We have a contact form on the website. We have a phone call scheduling on the website now, and you can just hello@valet.io. It rhymes, so it's easy to remember. And we'll talk to you. Every conversation has to be started with an idea of what you want to do, where you want to go, and what your goals are. I mean, that makes for the most effective communication. So yeah, that's the best way. Just say hey, and we'll say, hey, what you doing? What you want to do? And we'll go from there.
I love it. I think that last part is key. Knowing what you want to do, where you want to go, and then coming to the website advisors at Valet to figure out how to get there. Absolutely key. Thank you, Kimberly Lipari of Valet, CEO. I appreciate your time sharing what you're seeing in the market and how you all help connect in with clients for this cool thing we call the open web and WordPress.
Yes, love it. It's a place to be.